Welcome to Just Lyrics with Jake Michael. Today I'm talking to Eileen Tipping, who has been playing music forever, everywhere, forever.
Everywhere, forever. That's pretty good.
Yep, a singer-songwriter. And since I don't believe in introductions, I'm just going to launch into the first question.
All right, launch.
What music did you listen to or did you hear? What was the ambient music like when you were 5 or 6 years old? What was playing that you recall hearing as a wee child?
Well, my daddy was born in 1900. He was 51 when I was born.
Really?
So he had a great, incredible breadth of experience with music. He was not a musician, but he loved music, and he had experienced music from the World War I, World War II, swing era, and up into the Brat Pack. So I learned a lot from him. Perry Como, Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, all of the great classic singers. And my brother was into jazz, so I also had Bix Beiderbecke playing in the background a little bit. So it was wild. The only thing that I didn't have was the popular music of the day, which was pretty much Elvis and Buddy Holly and that sort of thing. I did not have that. My sisters weren't into that.
And you were the baby of the family?
I was the baby. Yeah.
How much older were your brothers and sisters?
Well, the youngest was 7 years older than me, and my brother was 14 years older than I was.
Wow.
And when my mother died, I was 5 years old, and I was taken in by my father's older sister.
Okay.
Who was the age of she could have been my grandmother.
Right.
So I lived with her, and she had her own musical tastes. So she loved the operettas.
Like, what is an operetta?
Gilbert and Sullivan.
Okay.
Mitzi and Fritzi and little King Fran. I thought Franz,
So your dad was
Pirates of Penzance.
Pirates of Penzance sort of stuff. Okay.
Yeah. So she loved that. She also loved all the standards, especially Bing Crosby. But she also remembered a lot of music from very early in the century, because that's when she was born and when she was a child. So a lot of the folk, old folk music.
Like old American folk music, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
American folk music. And that was what I heard when I was a kid.
That's pretty wild.
And church music, of course. I was raised a Catholic, so I was raised on Latin hymns.
On Latin hymns.
Which I knew.
Pardon? That got garbled.
I love them, and I memorized every one.
Now, I always feel that, and I've said this to you before, see, my family was like Indiana Methodist hymns. And, but the times I've been to Catholic services, the hymns are slightly different. They're more formal, and they're less, Gregorian chant sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Would you say that is fair? That is correct?
Yeah. It's not fair anymore. From Vatican II on, church music changed radically. It became, they started singing in the language of the country.
Right.
Completely demystified the music for me. I loved the Latin. I loved the beautiful music. It was all based on classical music. It was all, all of the great classical musicians wrote for the church. They wrote for the church. So they all wrote these beautiful requiems and masses. And from Vatican II on, things got kind of like I was in the guitar masses, played my little. We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord, we are one in the Spirit, we are,
Yeah. Okay.
Funny and sweet, but certainly not inspirational at all.
Yeah. So, question number 2, again, sort of background stuff. What was the first song you wrote that made you think you could write an original song? And this is inspired by David Bromberg, who says, before you can write a new song, you have to write every other song that's ever been written.
Wow. I'm not sure I agree with that. But, I'm not as successful as Bromberg. But the first song I wrote that really gave me a feeling that I could do that happened because I was at the King of Prussia Mall. And I was parked in their big parking garage. And I walked out of the store into the parking lot. And I looked up, and up above my head, there was the moon, the full moon, and a halogen light.
Right.
And they were equal in the sky. And I thought, how can we know where we live anymore if the halogen light and the moon are the same? And so that was a blues.
When did you write this?
I wrote this, I guess that was my first song. It was around 1990. I was in my 40s before I started writing.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And I never recorded that one because it evolved into a different song.
I see the moon and the moon sees me?
No, well, a lot of moon songs. I mean, I've written
right, you do
5 moon songs, but this particular one evolved into a song called "Open the Door." Right. The moon is another spotlight on your street is the first line of that song, and that was the song that had come out of the first song, which started in like the same way.
Now,
the spotlight shining down on this spot tonight. All of them blazing out so bright, no one can tell the day from the night. That was the beginning of the first song.
And you had, by that time, I know you had been in blues bands, and you had done musical theater or something like that. And was this, did you have kids and things at this point?
Musical theater. I worked with the People's Light and Theater Company. I had been in a blues band. When my last child was born, was 89, and I was at a party, and somebody played. The band was doing Bonnie Raitt. They said, "Hey, anybody know this song?" And I got up and I sang the song with them, which I think was probably Angel from Montgomery. And they said, "Wow, you want to join the band?" And I said, "Sure." So I became a blues band singer for a couple of years. And boy, that was a lot of fun. Got really old after a while, though, shutting down the clubs at 2 a.m. and packing out.
Breathing in cigarette smoke. That's what all those when I was doing gigs somewhat like that, it'd be like the next day. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of booze and a lot of smoke. But it was fun. It was, I was a mom. I had 4 kids. And it was a good way to break out for me, because I felt like I was doing something big.
And so the other thing is, one of the reasons that I know you, one of them, is because you operated a singer-songwriter open mic at Steel City in Phoenixville, which is just about 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia,
Right.
for how many years?
5.
5 years. It seemed like it was more. And
Yeah.
that was when Phoenixville has undergone a regentrification, but back then you could park anywhere on the streets because on a Thursday night.
And Tuesday night you can still park a lot of places on the street in Phoenixville.
Yeah.
We did Tuesday, and it was a writer's circle. I really advertised it as a writer's circle because there were a lot of open mics, and they were performance. But what I wanted was a group of people who could come together and share the music that they wrote or the poems that they wrote. And we did have a couple poets who hopped in every now and again.
Yeah.
Dagmar Hull, she was there, wonderful poet. And she would come in and recite her poetry. So I wanted a place because I was writing and I felt very strongly that there were not real venues for people who were writing, who weren't famous people or, big performers. And I felt like that was the most important thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you and BJ and Chris showed up and we started the circle, it really meant a tremendous amount to me to be able to listen to you guys and play with you and sing with you. I didn't play with you. I never played with very many people.
Right.
As a good lead player.
So that actually sort of segues into this next question, which is make-believe.
Oh.
Are you familiar with the Brill Building?
No.
In New York, there's this building called
what's her face?
Carole King.
Yeah, Carole King.
Yep, and a whole bunch of, I think it was like Neil Sedaka, and so let's say it's 1964, you're applying, you want to get a job at the Brill Building as a lyricist. And I think they had actual just people who were just lyricists back then.
Yes. Amazing.
I'm the guy who could hire you. Why should I hire you as a lyricist?
I can rhyme in any genre. I can give you a pop rhyme for an ad.
Uh-huh.
I can rhyme any kind of bebop lyric you want to, bebop tune you want to send me. I'll send you a rhyme for it. I'm a great rhymer.
Okay.
I really am.
No, I believe you. It's one of the reasons why I have you on the show.
Yeah.
To show. Good answer. So the next questions are technical of nature. What would you say, like one or two of your best lyrics in terms of a narrative, like a ballad, telling a story? What do you think? What songs that you have that you're kind of proud of that have a story arc to them?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is a song called Martha and James, which took me many years to write. And it was about an experience I had when I was working in recreation in a nursing home. And there were two 80-plus-year-old residents who fell in love with one another. And Martha was a very staid and proper mainline.
Uh-huh.
And she fell in love with Jimmy Yi, a Chinese American. And they would sit together every day out in the day room, and he would hold her hand and he would get her food. And he and she were just head over heels. And Martha said, privately, she said to me, I've never been in love before. I was married to a very nice man for 40 years. And he was very good to me, but I never loved him.
Huh.
Loved Jimmy. And I loved that relationship and that story so much. And I tried for years to make up the song. And I finally did. I finally wrote Martha and James. And it was, it had to do with his lost love and hers and how they found one another.
Yep, I remember that song.
Yeah. I never recorded it. Maybe I'll do it in my bedroom now that I can do it on my phone.
But I think actually that's also, if you're trying to do a popular album, there's very few people who can really pull off pop songs that have like a storyline to them. You think of most songs on the radio, there are very few of them. I think of Piano Man. Billy Joel's Piano Man is just a real pop hit, but it's a great story. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, Billy Joel, he's not that great, but boy, that story, that just is a great storyline. He's got a few really good ballads, but most people, they don't know him.
Yeah.
So
about my Aunt Hannah and her life, because her life was wonderful. She was born in 1901, married at age 19, and saw a complete change in the world. And I wrote that song for her, and just it followed her whole life. Followed through her whole life.
Is she the one who lived to be like 102?
104.
104.
We had a big party for her at 100. And she looked up from her little wheelchair at everybody and said, is anybody else here 100 today? She thought it was such a great joke that nobody else was her age.
Yeah, that's a trip.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next question is kind of the flip on this, where what songs do you have, or sections of songs which are really impressionistic, where there almost is no plot, and those tend to be more common. I always think of like All Along the Watchtower as a song where you have no idea what it's about, but you really have this sense of the image. And so, what have you got? What have you got in that? You want a job at the Brill Building?
I have a song that's called In the Deep. I tried to put it on my album, but we never could settle it. And it's very specific in my mind, but it's not a very specific song. It's just very atmospheric. There's also a song I wrote more recently that has to do with an Arabian proverb. I'm sure you're familiar with, he who knows not and knows not that he knows not, he is a fool, shun him. They go through all the 4 different, he who knows not and knows not that he knows not, he who knows not and knows that he knows not, he is simple, teach him. He who knows and knows not that he knows, he is asleep, wake him. And he who knows and knows that he knows, he is wise, follow him. So there's that proverb, and I, of course, being me, I changed it to female.
Uh-huh.
But it's very Middle Eastern sounding, if I can hazard to say that. It sounds
arabesque, I believe, is the term they use in music.
What?
Arabesque.
Yes. Yeah. That it would be. And that is one of the really atmospheric things. I don't do a lot of, I'm really I tell stories more than just creating a feeling.
Right. But I think I was thinking of Howling at the Moon. You got a song called Howling at the Moon.
Yeah,
which,
right. I didn't even think of that one.
And what I remember of it is not whatever the story is about, but just like this notion of howling at the moon and
and dancing in the rain on the blacktop.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's very much like that.
Now, you had talked about your rhyming skills. Mm-hmm. Do you have a particular line or phrase that you just think is like super great in terms of wordplay,
Oh,
rhyming, rhymes within rhymes.
sure, sure. My favorite and the funniest one is is in my song about the spring.
I was thinking of that line too.
Where are you? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Go
You
ahead.
know,
Let's hear it.
so it's I'm trying to think of the chorus. You know, it's just when you think you'll never see spring. Hocus pocus crocus.
Right.
Is the line.
There's another one where you have from Einstein's brain, where you say something about, I see him, and it's about Einstein has died and his life, and you say something like, I see him coming in crying and going out.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen him. I've been around for quite a few years now. I've seen him come and go. I've seen him come in, kicking and screaming. I've seen him fade out slow.
Right. I think that's a great line.
It's a goodie. I just love words. You know, I love words. When I was a kid, I memorized poems just because I loved the sound of the words.
Yeah. It just blows my mind that I had no idea that you had started so late in life to write this stuff.
Yeah.
I almost feel like, what were you doing all that time? You know, when you were a college student and you're,
I was a college student and I was
smoking marijuana and thinking about the stars, and you didn't come up with any of this?
I worked in I worked in theater. I worked as a stonemason. I fell in love. I practiced yoga. I had a bunch of kids, and it happened so suddenly, really. Right, it happened suddenly after, my last child and that band, joining the band
Mm-hmm.
and singing. And I think the singing sort of pushed everything, so that the singing created the need to write.
The
Singing the worst crappy blues songs. No, that's not true.
we're getting close to running out of time, but so, and this thing just cuts me off at sometimes. So I had heard this thing about, like, the word genius initially did not mean something inside your head, but rather the muse, the outside, the genie the genius would then infect you. And your story almost sounds like more like somebody who, got hit on the head with a rock, or found the genie in the bottle, or met the devil on the crossroads, and all of a sudden, boom.
It seems like that sometimes.
Yeah.
You get inspiration from so many. I once heard someone describe how an idea or a song would come from the ether, and pop into their brain. And if they didn't grab it and start using it,
Right.
start developing it, it would disappear into the ether again. And
Yeah.
that's happened to me. That has happened to me.
Yeah. Yep. That's happened to me as well. So 2 more questions. It's funny to get the format of this. You do like 25, 30 minutes, and it goes by so quickly. These are kind of embarrassing questions. Shame questions. What musicians are you ashamed to admit that you like? So these are like, not high art.
Not high art. Oh, I like the funny country guys. The country clowns, like Homer and Jethro. They sing crazy things like, "You can have your heart back now. I ordered liver anyhow."
Okay, I'm not familiar with Homer and Jethro. Yeah.
My friend Jane and I in college used to learn all the Homer and Jethro tunes because they were so crazy and silly. So yeah, there we go. Lowbrow.
Yeah. Were they on Hee Haw sort of stuff?
Yeah, that was the kind of thing. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
now here's the flip side of this. What critically acclaimed music or musician do you dislike? And you don't have to give any reasons why. Like someone who you know, you're supposed to like this, and yet you just don't.
Opera.
Opera?
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Opera. Can't do it.
Yeah. All righty. Well, it's our time is up so quickly. Would you like to tell our throngs of viewers, if they are interested in hearing your music, is there an online place that they can go to while away the quarantine?
They can go to my Facebook page,
Right.
Eileen Tipping Music, and there's some music there.
So if they Google Eileen Tipping Music, they'll find you.
Yes. You can go to Google, you can go to iTunes, you can go to Amazon Music. I'm a lot of different little places. I'm even on Spotify. Surprisingly enough.
Good for you. All right. Well, it's so that's the time we had this time together. It's just how old we both are. But
Jake, oh my gosh.
this has been Just Lyrics with Jake Michael talking to Eileen Tipping. Yay!
Wild.
Eileen writes good songs. And with that, I press the stop record button and say goodbye. Goodbye. Boom. Stop.